Welcome to the School of Laughs podcast, brought to you by schooloflaughs.com. Whether you're an aspiring comedian, a part-time pro, or a speaker who wants to become funnier, this is the podcast for you. We'll break down tools, tips, and techniques to help you get bigger, better, and more bookable. And now, here's the show.
Welcome to the School of Laughs podcast. Rick Roberts here today. Have an interview with my buddy and my podcast editor, Doc Kennedy. So stick around for that, especially if you're interested in what's going on or what has been going on in the Pacific Northwest as far as comedy is concerned. That's where Doc came from before he moved to Nashville and gave us some insights into that. Also would like to thank our Patreon supporter for this episode, which is John Hill. John has a small monthly donation going towards supporting the podcast. You can do the same thing. Learn more about that at schooloflaughs.com/Patreon. And if you donate at $7 a month or more, you get to join Club 52, which is a strategically designed program that gives you an email each week with one specific actionable task you can take to make yourself bigger, better, and more bookable. And that is quite a good deal at $7 a month. All right. Today we have, like I said, Doc Kennedy. He's going to tell us a little bit about where he came from, what he's up to, and what's on the horizon. And at the back end of this, I'll tell you about some upcoming comedy class dates, including the performance class in Nashville, which is just a few weeks away. So if you're interested in that, make sure you check the show notes or listen all the way through so you get that information. And if you leave an iTunes review and screenshot it and shoot it to me, I'll read it on the air and send you a punchline checklist to help you write better jokes. All right, let's get on to this episode with Doc Kennedy. Well, I am here with podcast master Doc Kennedy.
Hi, Rick.
How's it going, buddy?
Swell. How are we?
We're doing pretty good. I know for a while I've wanted to have you on, and we finally found some time where we're both around hanging out. And just up front, from all the podcast listeners, thanks for doing the editing here.
Well, as Chick-fil-A would say, my pleasure.
My pleasure. Do you want the cookie or the book? It's been a big help. So this will be interesting because you'll have to edit yourself on the podcast.
You know I'm going to take a little extra time on this one.
Do whatever you need to do. I first knew you from the Pacific Northwest, and really when you came on my radar, I think, was when we started doing some of the Patreon hangouts.
Yeah. Here
in this office, I'd sit here and talk to 7 or 8 people around the country and got to know you a little bit there initially. And you were in just outside of Seattle, or where were you?
Yeah, about 30 miles outside Seattle, Tacoma, Washington. Moved out there from Eastern Washington because the little town I was in didn't have anything going on.
Didn't have anything.
Yeah. I took a writing class out there. At that time, School of Laughs didn't exist. But I did reach out to you at that time, talking about where I should move. I had it narrowed down to Atlanta, Nashville. Seattle wasn't on the board.
Really?
Yeah. And so I remember reaching out to you. You said, whatever you do, don't come to Nashville. So I waited, 12 years to do that.
which was the right move, because at that time, there really wasn't much going on. Most comics were driving to Birmingham or Chattanooga or Atlanta or Louisville to do open mics because there was more opportunity there to do open mics. Now it's a fairly solid spot.
I love it here.
Yeah,
I love it here. It's such a small space. And when I was out by Seattle, you'd have to drive, quite a ways if you were going to double dip, have 2 mics in one night, do 2 sets. You were driving quite a bit. Out here, you can hit them pretty close.
Yeah, that landscape out there is a little different for sure. But you look on a map, you're like, you got Seattle, you got Olympia, you got Portland. Mm-hmm. They're kind of 3 decent sized cities and not too far of a drive.
It is pretty close. It'd be like if I'm going from Seattle to Portland, it's almost like Nashville to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Not bad at all.
Not horrible. It's a doable thing.
Oh, for sure.
And so did all 3 of those towns have kind of their own stand-up clique kind of culture?
No, they kind of mesh together. Yeah.
Kind of Northwest. Here we are.
Yeah. Tacoma has an awesome comedy club.
That's right.
Tacoma Comedy Club. And then Seattle has the Underground, and they have Laughs and some other ones. And of course, those have all changed through the years. But Tacoma Comedy Club is awesome because, one difference between here and there is here, there's so much entertainment. There's a lot of mics that you'll go to where it's mainly other comics. Mm-hmm. But out there, there's a limited resource of entertainment. So open mics at Tacoma Comedy Club, it was a regular thing to have close to 100 people show up. You really got the real feedback that you'd want.
Yeah, an honest crowd that wasn't comics looking at their set list.
That's it. Yes.
It was the constant battle. Who were some of the comics, bigger name comics that were around at that time that you kind of looked at, or local headliners that would go on the road?
Well, when I first went on stage out there, it would have been, I don't even remember what year, but Andrew Rivers, he's on Dry Bar, and he's done some other stuff. I remember meeting him, and he was a newbie at that time. I wanted to do stand-up to get into acting.
Really?
I had no clue how to get into acting. Come from this little podunk town, had no clue. Originally from Montana, so, nothing on my radar for that. I saw some stand-ups using that as a vehicle to get into acting. And then I got plugged in with this mega church in Tacoma, and I got involved with their media production team. And I was struggling with stand-up. And so I saw this opportunity to pursue the same dream with a different vehicle.
Sure.
And I decided to take that. And I learned a ton through that journey, which is actually why I've been able to podcast, in part because of so much of what I learned through that, just on the tech side.
Had you done any kind of tech stuff like that before?
No, I started at the bottom.
Really?
Literally the bottom.
Like you turn on the light switch and then, okay, that was pretty good. Let's see if you can do the dimmer.
Yeah, that was it. The production team, it was all volunteers except for a 2 or 3 paid spots. And my first ever job there was to listen to the live stream. I hit start and stop.
Yeah.
When the director told me.
That's great.
So, and within about 4 years, I'd worked my way up to being on staff and being a live production director. I was doing the switcherboard. I knew it all.
Right.
And I had to know it all. I don't miss it.
Right.
But, at that time, it was great. It was a great time in my life, and no regrets. But stand-up was always calling, and I'd go do a set or two a year, get mad and go back to work.
Did you do that church in Tacoma where they create videos with? Yeah. So did you get in on some of that?
Yeah.
Both sides of it?
I got to, we did some co-writing and produced some, we tried to produce comedy for promos, but I've been able to use some of that stuff for my actor's reel.
The acting part, like I've just gotten lucky with a couple of things where they needed somebody that could do Barney Fife or something like that. And I always liked the idea of it, but I never had a memory to where I could memorize lines. And I always, even in college, I was the lead in the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Okay.
For about 4 weeks. And then it got 2 weeks out and I just bailed. Like I really, there's several times where I bailed on people that I wish I could go back and make it up, but I couldn't articulate my lines well enough so the next person knew. They would walk out of the scene thinking they were in the wrong scene. And I'm like, no, you're supposed to be here. I just didn't get you there right.
Yeah.
Did you have any memory skills, or was that something you just...
Well, yeah.
Could you memorize if you had to? I
liked improvising. And I got this one paid gig. This guy hired me to do this little spot. He said, hey, what I like is that it looks like you can improvise and all this stuff. So I didn't memorize his lines. Well, then I get there and he wants me to, Tarantino it and have everything spot on. And, it's just a matter of taste and I'll make it work.
Even though you see stand-ups using comedy as a vehicle to get into acting, it's hard if you're a traveling road dog comic to be home when the calls came for auditions. And that's when I first moved here, I got connected with a few things and they would call me and like, hey, can you be here tomorrow? I'm like, I'm actually not even here. I'm in wherever, Ohio or Michigan or whatever.
Sure.
And so just eventually they stopped calling because 9 times out of 10 you weren't around. Yeah. Now I'm home a little more. I wouldn't mind doing some things and I get a chance to do a couple things here and there, but they're complementary skill sets, but still with comedy, you got your words versus a script of somebody else's words, And
in my act, I love doing crowd work. Well, that's the total opposite of filmmaking.
Right. You can't stop in the middle of Alas, poor York. I knew him well. How y'all doing tonight?
I always like that story about Dangerfield doing Caddyshack, and he's doing it. It's his first time on a set ever, and he's doing his lines, and he's sweating bullets.
Yeah.
And he's going. He finally says, "Why isn't anybody laughing?"
Right. Like that's the audience that will watch the movie. Oh, okay, all right. It's a tough gig. Yeah. I guess that's the biggest difference besides just their words versus your own words, but it's you have to wait for the commercial or the thing to come out to see how it's viewed as opposed to, immediately on stage. Yeah. They're digging it or they're not.
And then on the flip side, there's editing. So I can make myself look really good.
Right. You've got those skills. Mad skills. Well, when you were out there, before moving here, how much time did you have that you were comfortable with doing out there? Longest sets where you felt like, I'm in the zone for this amount of time, that kind of stuff. Like if you were getting booked for a gig, what was the slot?
5 to 10. Mm-hmm. But it was different, and it was totally different. I didn't really feel like myself. I didn't feel like I could really just be me.
Mm-hmm. Out there?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, because things are a little bit different there, socially, politically.
Pretty left-leaning.
Yeah. And I'm not looking to offend anybody.
But you're just a natural person. Is more toward the right.
Yeah, sure.
So
and the things that don't offend me, might offend somebody else. I don't get offended, but it was just different.
Yeah.
That's it.
And when you moved here, did you find that it was a little bit easier to be you?
Yeah. And, I had some interesting challenges out there, especially around election time.
Oh, yeah. Well, I could see that. But also, well, it depends on who's putting the show together. But I would think it'd be great to have some, a comic with some different views than the 10 that came right before you.
You would think.
But if that comic has the same view as those other 9 or 10, then it's maybe hard to get on the show.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't even getting on the shows. So I was on the shows. I woke up in the night thinking about this, Rick. We're talking about like cancel culture these days and stuff. And that hit me out there. Uh-huh. And, I'm not anything big. You can cancel me and nobody's going to notice. But there was this point where there was some people that had decided that because I supported the president, I said something positive about the president. Right. I wasn't even saying anything that was like, hey, I love Donald Trump, or anything like that. They just decided, well, if he said anything positive, he's a Nazi.
Right.
That was their words.
That was what they really were thinking.
And they tried hard to get me kicked off shows.
Wow.
And it really hit me personally in a tough way. It really hurt me, my character. Mm-hmm. It was a straight up character attack. And that was tough, but you learn through that stuff. Obviously, it didn't get me to stop.
Right.
And the people that are attacking, they're not even doing comedy anymore.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's how that usually works.
They're at a fundraiser right now trying to get Butyl gig in or whatever.
Yeah, sure. I don't blame them either. I think that's important too, is that I don't blame them for their viewpoint. They're getting information that's incorrect, but I can understand how that incorrect information can lead to fear.
Sure.
And they view, certain people as a threat.
Right.
So I don't blame them. That's where they're at.
Well, at least here, the good thing about Nashville, and I don't know,
Well, and I didn't move out here because I wanted to be in a safe zone for righties either.
What I was thinking is here, it's very much a melting pot.
It is.
There's not that, gosh, if I went around and counted my friends who actually are from Nashville, it's up to 40% maybe, but not anywhere over 50. So most people here came from somewhere else because they just kind of like the town. It's got some vibe to it. There's things to go see. I don't know about the Pacific Northwest. If I doubt that there's more people moving there because
they can't afford to.
Well, that's for sure. It's definitely expensive, but it's such people from that part of the country maybe go further to the coast if they can afford it. But like you and other people from Pacific Northwest that moved here. So it's a melting pot of a lot more flavor and a lot more opinion. So
yeah. But the local comedy community here is so supportive of each other. And it wasn't quite like that in where I was, I really appreciate that here. I hope that the local comics in Nashville realize that they have it pretty good in the way that they really genuinely help support each other and work together. And that doesn't happen everywhere.
No. And we do kind of pull for each other.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because we've seen some people from the area do really well, and we know it's possible.
Sure.
Like if you stick it out long enough, you can do things. You don't necessarily have to live on the coast to have success or anything like that. But what I really like, I guess, is guys like Nate and Keith or whoever, Dusty, they're grinding out the open mics when they're not doing a TV spot, just like everybody else. So you're like, hey, that guy's he's a grinder, regardless. So I like that about this town.
Oh, sure. You got people that are just coming in. They're just starting. You got, vets like yourself that are popping in. And so, that was also something that was lacking out there. There was a lot of immaturity because there's really, when a comic makes it out there, they're gone. There's just not too many that stick around. Part of my problem too was, Portland's close and all that, but you're stuck in the armpit. Too. So out here, at least I can hit the road and have some opportunities spreading out a little bit,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Geographically.
Yeah.
I started in Columbus, Indianapolis. Those are really good because I think they say in a day's drive, you're within half the population of the country almost,
sure.
And Nashville's not that bad either. If you look at the southern spoke with Birmingham and Atlanta, and you can get to Florida if you need to, you can go at least Panama City on a day drive. So there's a lot more places you can go to. I kind of cap it at 500 miles on a day.
Sure.
I just had one where it's 500 miles, 250 up to the gig and 250 back in the same day. And that's about as much as this 50-year-old back can handle. Yeah. But it's doable. Like you can you can zip up to Indianapolis or Cincinnati or Columbus, or a lot more opportunity as far as that.
Yeah. And, there's this Canadian border there. That doesn't really help things.
Right.
And then you're looking at either down or east. And going east, there's not a whole lot. There's Spokane. And Spokane's the biggest city headed east, probably till Minneapolis.
Yeah. I'd say you're right.
It's kind of limited.
Yeah. I'm trying to think how many people live in Billings, Montana, but probably not nearly enough.
Well, enough to do a show.
Yeah.
You can do a Montana tour. Yeah. It's just you're going to have to work for it.
Yeah. Yeah. There were some bookers that I had contact information, but I never called them because I just heard about the gigs, how long it would take you to get there. You literally would have to get off stage and start driving to get to the town for the next show.
Oh, sure.
The next day. It was just like, so.
Yeah, it's a lot.
a little better off around here. I never even asked you how you met your wife. And if you don't want to answer on that.
Oh, yeah. No, that's fine. I met her at church. And she's from the same part of Washington State I'm from.
Right. So I didn't know if you knew her from back then, but you didn't.
No, we didn't know each other at all there.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And so, I took her to Zany's that night to watch Brian Bates' show. And we both walked away saying, no chance.
Yeah.
That we didn't like each other at all. And a month later, we started dating. And then a month after that, we were looking at rings. And
well, that's cool, man. And then, so I also want to promote your podcast that you have. Tell us a little bit about it, where they can find it. And if they like hearing us two talk, they might hear that in a week or two, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. It was an honor having you on there, Rick. So it's called Free to Laugh, talking about political correctness and comedy. And you can find that at freetolaugh.us. And I love hearing people's perspectives, no matter where they're coming from. Mm-hmm. I want to hear what their angles are. I've had folks on that are, right in track with what I'm thinking. I've had folks on that aren't. Mm-hmm. Just talking about the different things that are impacting not only political correctness, with comedy, but freedom of speech.
Right. That's great. And I like that it's freetolaugh.us.
Yeah.
I like that's just like perfect.
Yeah.
What else should it be?
My favorite part with that was it was a free URL.
Even better.
Yes.
A free to laugh, free URL. Freedom. That's great. Well, thanks, Doc, for jumping on today, and I hope you have fun editing yourself on this podcast.
Oh man, I'm going to sound so good.
No, thanks again for doing that too.
You betcha, buddy, and thanks for all you do for comics. School of Laughs has been a blessing, and your friendship has been a true blessing for me.
Well, thank you. Likewise, I appreciate you, buddy. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Doc gave us a little insight there on the old Pac Northwest, what was going up there before he left and why he moved to Nashville and how it's going now. That was good stuff, Doc. And thanks for editing your own episode of your own podcast. That sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? And like I said, he's got a podcast too. You want to check that out? We have that in the show notes. He mentioned that on the tail end of this podcast. And I'll make sure we'll have some links in there so you can go check out his show, which is very insightful, and I did a recent episode of it as well, and I'll link to that in the notes. Would like to read a quick iTunes review here before we kick off. This is from Tim Ketchersid. He's out there in Texas, and he leaves this review. Get better and more bookable. The School of Laughs podcast has been incredibly valuable for me. I can't recommend it highly enough for people who are wanting to learn and grow in the art of business and stand-up. There may be lots of ways to get better and more bookable to stand up, but this podcast is one of the best. Rick Roberts knows what he's talking about and brings in other pros that have really helped me. Hey, thank you very much, Tim, for leaving the podcast review, and I hope you're enjoying that punchline checklist that I sent in return. You too, who are listening right now, can get that punchline checklist. If you just leave an iTunes review, shoot a screenshot of it and shoot that to me at schooloflaughs@gmail.com. Upcoming comedy classes. We have the performance class going to kick off here in just a couple of weeks. If you're listening to this on the date of release, we are about exactly 9 days away. We start February 24th. That's a Monday, and we meet again on Monday, March 2nd and the 16th. That's a 3-session class. We go from 6 to 9 o'clock. You get on stage, you do your set. We give you laser-focused feedback and ideas and suggestions on how to make it funnier, how to make it tighter, and overall how to perform it in a way that sets you apart from the others. Favorite class that I teach, and I can't wait to get this one lined up. We've got the dates. We have a few more spots left. If you're interested in joining, shoot me an email, schooloflaughs@gmail.com, or simply go to schooloflaughs.com, click on live classes, and you'll see the performance class listed there. There'll be some buttons you can click to get signed up. Either way works for me. Shoot me that message if you need more information as well. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks again, Doc. Thanks to John Hill for sponsoring us, and thanks to Tim Ketchersid for doing the iTunes review. You guys stay safe out there and stay funny.
Thanks for listening to the School of Laughs podcast. If you'd like to hear more School of Laughs podcasts, you can find them on iTunes and Stitcher.com. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. For information on upcoming live and online classes, visit schooloflaughs.com. Until next time, stay tuned, stay focused, and stay funny.